Bienvenue. Please come in, join us, and take a seat. Welcome to the Whitecoat ceremony for the class of 2019. We're going to begin by welcoming Dr. Padgen, director of the I Medici Quartet.
Thank you, Dr. Cummings, Dean, distinguished guests, parents, colleagues, and the class 2019. It's our particular privilege and pleasure to be here because I Medici di McGill Quartet, string quartet, was present at every previous Whitecoat ceremony, so we are part of the deal. This really is a momentous step in your development, and music contributes to this. Let me introduce my colleagues that play with me. Kian Lee, she is a PharmD student from University of Montreal. Tabea Haas-Hager, she is in the anatomy and cell biology at McGill, and so is Danny Kim. Now, you may know we are members of a larger group that's called I Medici di McGill Orchestra. There is somewhat between 60 and 70 of us that wouldn't fit here. And I could invite you to our next concert, which is a benefit concert for NOVA, November 20th. It's a benefit for a very good cause. Now, for today, we have chosen to play Beethoven, Opus 18, number 1, first movement. This is young Beethoven, but still, there is a trace of genius, the promise, and if I may say, looking at the class of 2019, there is a lot of promise.
Thank you, Dr. Pajan and the Amidici Quartet. I am Beth Cummings, the Associate Dean for Undergraduate Medical Education. On behalf of myself and our Undergraduate Medical Education Office, it is truly an honor and pleasure to welcome you all here today. Due to time constraints, we do ask that you please resist the temptation from taking photos during the ceremony. The official photographer will take beautiful photographs of each and every student receiving his or her coat during the ceremony, and you will have the opportunity to take further photos after the ceremony during the reception. To the class of 2019, in addition to your friends and family, many of your Osler Fellows are here to support you today. I would like to acknowledge the Osler Fellows and ask them to please rise so that we can all join the class of 2019 in acknowledging your important contribution to their development as physicians. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the Vice Principal of Health Affairs and Dean, Faculty of Medicine, Dr. David Eidelman.
Thank you very much, Beth. Welcome, class 2019, family and friends. Je vous souhaite la bienvenue. C'est pas seulement en tant que doyen, mais aussi en tant que médecin et diplômé de cette école que j'ai l'honneur de m'adresser à vous aujourd'hui, à la classe de 2019 et à tous vos invités. Before I begin, I'd like to personally thank and welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. John Lawner, who's Associate Dean from Health Education England in London, and an esteemed family physician, therapist, educator, and thought leader. On behalf of all of us here, I'd also express our deep thanks to and appreciation to Dr. Frederick Braun of the McGill MDCM class of 1972, whose generous support has made the Whitecoat ceremony possible once again. I have a huge thank you to Dr. Donald Boudreau for sustaining this event and for many other things, of course, and for working closely with Ann Briggs and her team to make sure that this is a success. So here we are at the Whitecoat ceremony, donning the healer's habit. So it always makes me think back to when I was at your stage in 1976. So some of you will remember there was something called the Olympics in 1976. And many of us had come back to school in second year having spent the summer, part of our summer, at the Olympics. Of course, we weren't athletes at the Olympics. We were urine collectors. So somebody figured out how to get a gig for the Med 1 students at Université de Montréal and McGill to be urine collectors for anti-doping testing at the Olympics. It was so cool. The best part was because we had to follow the athletes after their events, we had passes that could let us go anywhere in the Olympics. We could go to the athletes' village, we could go to the... Anyway, it was really cool. But then we came back to school, and getting started in clinical work in those days, we didn't have LFME in those days. We didn't see patients until the middle of second year. And it wasn't so cool. Now, we got white coats, of course, but the way it worked in those days is you got a note or an instruction from the office and it said, go to this place, pick up your white coat and go to work, right? It was, you got instructions and you got introductions and stuff, but there was no ceremony. And we were good baby boomers, of course, and we did as we were told. We didn't ask too many questions. We knew that doctors wore white coats, and so we were going to be doctors, and it made sense for us to get white coats too. So that made, that's the way it was. Mais aujourd'hui, cependant, nous sommes engagés dans un événement qui marque une transition importante dans votre vie et dans l'évolution de votre carrière en tant que futur médecin. Comme vous le savez, la remise de votre sarreau aujourd'hui est symbolique. Hein? C'est le nouveau programme d'études qu'on a fait en sorte que vous les portez de la première année, vous rencontrez les patients, vous avez vos premiers contacts cliniques dans la médecine familiale, dans la LFMI. So this isn't, I was actually asked by Dawn, maybe we should do this ceremony in first year, and I said, no, we want to keep it here, because this ceremony has a lot of symbolic importance, and the symbolism, the thing it signifies in the second year is that you're slowly moving forward to the point where you're going to be assuming clinical responsibility for patients. Now, you'll notice your white coats are short. This is a custom here. You wear a white coat that's short until you graduate, then you get a white coat that's long. They're very functional. You can put things in the pockets, especially snacks. It's very important to eat, not go around hungry. You get that important tip there. But aside from the obvious conveniences, remember that white coats are really the equivalent of the special clothing that priests or shamans would wear in other cultures throughout history. In every culture, there is the concept of the person or persons who have the role of providing healing to the community, and it's different in different cultures. And typically, those people put on special clothing, and this is our special clothing. Of course, we don't always wear white coats nowadays, and some of us don't believe we should ever wear white coats for all kinds of reasons, but they were adopted more than a century ago by physicians at the time as a marketing tool to show that physicians were associated with science, right? Because scientists wear white coats. And it wasn't true then, but it is true now that we do practice medicine based on science. I hope. Of course, the idea of white coats is sometimes criticized. It separates the healer from their patient. It acts as a vector of infection, especially if you can't keep it clean. Interestingly, there is evidence to suggest that nevertheless, patients like to see their physician wearing a white coat because it gives them a sense that they're in a special relationship with that person. Like traditional societies, we expect our healers to be special, at least in a sense that they're special exercising their healing function. And this is why the white coat ceremony, as it was formerly called, is now called donning the healer's habit ceremony. And that's because while we share with traditional healers a certain role. Of course, we have pride that we go beyond that we're not just mystics or harbingers of doom or imposters, but we are people there to help. We live in an age of evidence-based medicine. We do believe in the application of science to healing, and modern-day doctors work hand-in-hand with scientists. In fact, they often are both scientists and physicians at the same time, and so it's perfectly appropriate to wear the same attire. Putting on this coat, you're marking transition from a first-year student to someone who's becoming a professional. The coat is meant to convey your professional responsibilities that you're going to carry out throughout your career. And this is symbolism of a very high order. When you started last year, you started a great adventure, and you also assumed an awesome responsibility, one reserved for the medical profession and for emerging health professionals like you. From that moment, expectations increased. As a McGill student of medicine, you're expected to aspire to an even higher level of performance and behavior. Medical school, as I hope you're learning, is not really about you. And it's not really about the marks you're going to get on exams. It's about the people you will serve, the individuals, their families, society, what you will do and how you'll listen to them, treat them, and help them heal. Donning the white coat is the first step to becoming the outstanding doctor that you one day will be, and living up to the expectations, which are high but achievable. While today you don a physical coat, during your career you will adapt your appearance to the demands of the specific paths you choose. The white coat and how it's used will be a reflection of the person wearing it. It will be a reflection of you. As a family doctor, your white coat might have a stethoscope in the pocket. And for some specialties, white coat is perhaps better left hanging on a hook. And pediatricians rarely wear them, psychiatrists don't wear them. Many of us try not to wear them. But it doesn't matter. The white coat is still has its symbolism is extremely potent nonetheless. And it's been called the emblem of trust, an emblem of trust between you and your patients, one that must be earned. And we have every confidence that you will earn that trust. Revêtir votre sarrau est un geste tout simple, mais très significatif pour vous et aussi pour vos proches. To get this place and point in time, it's required extraordinary effort on your part, but also the support of family and friends. This is a great moment of pride for them too. Vous réalisez leurs rêves et l'espoir qu'ils avaient pour vous. So to your family and friends, I'd like to say merci, thank you, and just a brief applause for the people who helped you. Alors, futurs médecins, au nom de la faculté de médecine, je vous félicite. I wish you the best on the next steps in your journey to become a McGill physician and make all of us in the room very proud. Merci.
Thank you, Dean Eidelman, for those inspiring words. It's now a privilege to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Dr. John Launer. Dr. Launer is a family physician, family therapist, and an educator. He is an associate dean for multi-professional faculty development at Health Education England and lead honorary consultant in general practice and primary care at the Tavistock Clinic in London. He teaches widely on the use of narrative skills and ideas in primary and secondary healthcare, including courses on narrative-based supervision for healthcare professions. Dr. Launer has written or edited 6 books, including Narrative-Based Primary Care, A Practical Guide, How Not to Be a Doctor and Other Essays, and Clinical Uncertainty in Primary Care, The Challenge of Collaborative Engagement. Dr. Launer is an associate editor of the Postgraduate Medical Journal, for which he writes a monthly column on medical humanities and postgraduate medical education. Dr. Launer.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. C'est un honneur pour moi d'être ici aujourd'hui et de participer à ce rite de passage. Je tiens à offrir mes plus chaleureuses félicitations aux étudiants de la promotion 2019. Vous êtes à une étape importante, celle où vous êtes sur le point d'entamer votre formation dans les milieux cliniques. I want to honor especially today the contribution that everyone present has made to this moment. As the Dean said, parents and relations, friends, and of course, faculty. And I had the great honor yesterday of meeting the Osler Fellows and running a workshop with them. When I describe it as an honor to be here myself, it's more than a token statement. When I read the list of previous speakers, I stand in awe of the distinguished company in which I now find myself. I've spent most of my own career as a working family physician, a GP, in a deprived urban district of London in the UK. It happens to be called Edmonton. It was the original Edmonton. It was only from my late 40s that I began to make a significant connection with the wider medical world through my teaching and writing, mainly in medical education. And it is this which has led to the unexpected privilege of speaking here today, for which I'm deeply grateful. I spent most of my time as a family physician working in a clinic called the Forest Road Health Centre. We used to call it, as a joke, the University of Forest Road. But it also wasn't a joke. I worked there with a wonderful team of colleagues, doctors, nurses, and a wider healthcare team. Almost everything I know professionally or now teach or write about comes from 25 years of what you might call honourable obscurity. I devoutly hope, and it is a sincere wish, not an ironic one, that many of you will have careers of similar honourable obscurity, whether or not you later turn to other interests as I have done. If you do, you will have as much opportunity to carry out acts of healing and of kindness as your peers who move on to grander work, and perhaps you will do even more. One of the things I have learned in family medicine, possibly the most important thing of all, is that advice is one of the least effective forms of communication. Your patients and your colleagues generally want first and foremost to be listened to. They want their stories to be witnessed. They may or may not want some expert information from you, but if they do, they expect it to be part of a dialogue. In the end, the only advice they are likely to take is probably the advice they formulate for themselves during that dialogue. It isn't possible in a formal speech like this to enter into dialogue with all of you, although I would love to, but I shall still try to keep advice to a minimum. What I want to do instead is to explore one particular aspect of medical experience that I believe is underplayed in training, but has been a significant part of my own career. I want to talk about the importance of being wrong. One advantage of choosing this subject, as my family and colleagues will tell you, is that I've had a very great deal of personal experience of it. Your own training so far has no doubt emphasized how to get things right, and this will continue throughout your clinical training. But I want to explain why this needs to be balanced with a realistic expectation that you will often get things wrong, and how this is both inevitable and essential as part of your own professional development. When you first set out on your clinical studies, you may find it impossible at first to fit all the facts and theories you've learned to the complex and confusing individuals you meet on the wards and in the clinics. You may even feel at times that it is rather overwhelming. You may think that this is a feeling you should grow out of. Please don't. I very much hope that you never do completely. The more fully you can remain confused and perplexed and unsure of your own certainties, the better. In a book called How Doctors Think, the Harvard physician Jerome Groopman lists the different kinds of cognitive error that doctors persistently make. Probably the commonest of these is when we automatically diagnose something familiar rather than something uncommon, the so-called availability error. Related to this is the anchoring error, when we make a quick judgment and stick to it, even though all the evidence mounts up against it. You will certainly make these errors and many others like it. We all do. Possibly the best favor you can do to your patients is to accept that these kinds of bias happen all the time and to notice when you fall into them. You may know the work of the economist Daniel Kahneman and his book, Thinking Fast and Slow. In a wonderful series of experiments, he and his colleague Amos Tversky demonstrated how easily we are deceived by the superficial presentation of a problem rather than considering it in detail. Say to a patient, "You have a 99% chance of surviving the operation," and they will probably sign that consent form with enthusiasm. Tell them, "There is a 1 in 100 chance you will die in the operating theatre tomorrow," and they will feel rather differently. Words play tricks on us, and we can all sometimes reenact the same verbal tricks on patients unless we take the trouble to share information honestly and reflectively. There are many other ways of being wrong. Another author, Catherine Schultz, catalogues them unflinchingly in a wonderful book called, quite simply, Being Wrong. She offers an encyclopedia of everything from mirages and optical illusions to false memories and profound beliefs in the absurd. She demonstrates how almost everything we do, say, and believe as human beings is accompanied by certainty, even though we generally depend for our knowledge on highly selective physical senses, insufficient evidence, inaccurate memories, or the beliefs of those around us. From my own observation, I would suggest that one of the commonest ways of being wrong in medicine relates to something called clinical gist, or simply getting the gist. Here's a true story from my own recent observation. A woman came to the emergency room because a piece of fish had got stuck in her throat. The admitting doctor heard the word fish and immediately assumed she must have swallowed a fish bone, so he ordered an X-ray of her neck. This was normal, but the doctor now got distracted by her complaint of chest discomfort. Not surprising, since she had some fish stuck in her throat. So he ordered an electrocardiogram. This showed some flutter, because the woman had a slight tremor in her hands because she was nervous. So a cardiologist was called, and so on and so forth, and I could tell you of the 6 or 7 subsequent dead ends and false starts. Then finally, the doctor asked her to show exactly where she felt the blockage, and she pointed her finger at her sternum, not her throat at all. What she meant by her throat and what the doctor understood were entirely different. She had a stricture in her esophagus. A child could have asked her to point at the blockage and possibly have worked out why it was there, but the doctor didn't. You may think this is quite an unusual story, but as you go through your clinical training, you may notice that this kind of thing happens a very great deal, even at McGill. It comes from people being excessively drawn into the details and forgetting to check the big picture. Getting things wrong doesn't just happen to individuals. It happens in systems, possibly even more. There is the so-called Swiss cheese effect, where all the holes line up and something terrible slips through. A doctor forgets to write urgent on a form. The lab sends the results back to the wrong department. The secretary takes too long to redirect it. The patient assumes no good is good news, only to find later that it's too late for the chemotherapy that would have cured her. The doctor shrugs this off as an act of God, but that may not be terribly fair to God. If the doctor had just written down in a notebook or on a smartphone, check Mrs. Hussein's biopsy result on Thursday and call her, it would have saved her life. As the poet William Blake wrote, "He who would do good to another must do it in minute particulars." Blake actually went on to say, "General good is the plea of the scoundrel, the hypocrite, and the flatterer. Well, you may think that's going a little bit too far, but you can certainly see his point. I want to finish by looking at two other aspects of being wrong, one of them evolutionary and the other more political in the broadest sense. The evolutionary scholar Robert Trivers, who is one of my heroes, has argued that self-deception is not just an inescapable part of the human condition, it's a vital one as well. He's written a book called Deceit and Self-Deception, Fooling Yourself, the Better to Fool Others. He argues that it will be impossible to survive in human society without being able to conceal our shortcomings from others, and we can accomplish this even better if we fool ourselves first. We are, in other words, a species given to self-deception. This can be a bitter pill to swallow, and you may well react against it, but it chimes with a great deal of psychological research and with everyday experience. I prided myself for years on having an unerring sense of direction, but when I confessed to my wife and children recently that I thought this wasn't quite as good as it used to be, they almost collapsed with laughter. They had recognized for many years how regularly I was getting them lost on country walks or drives, but my own poor brain had taken much longer to catch up with their clear observations. The last way of being wrong that I want to mention is a far nobler one. At some point in your career, or perhaps all the way through it, you may find that you are the only one not marching in step. The Australian physician Barry Marshall was one such person when he isolated Helicobacter pylori and claimed it was a contributing factor to peptic ulcers. Now, everyone of my generation and his knew this was absolute nonsense because there was no way a bacterium could cause ulcers, and in any case, none could survive the acid environment of the stomach. But we were all wrong, and Barry Marshall was right, and he won the Nobel Prize for his discovery, eventually saving tens of thousands of people from gastric surgery. As a profession, we owe him a collective apology. Or you may find that marching in step takes another form. You may look at what passes for adequate consulting among colleagues around you, what the sociologist Elliot Mishler ironically termed the unremarkable medical interview, and you may judge it to be inferior to the kind of empathy you receive from your average hairdresser. You may resolve to be more courageous personally, to act with more compassion in your own interactions with patients, and to try and influence others, your students, to do the same. Or you may even regard the whole project of modern medicine as you see it as deeply flawed. You may perceive that the emphasis on expensive medical and surgical interventions is a travesty in a world where so much illness is caused by poverty and social injustice and could be ameliorated far more by enlightened politics and economics than by any health service. And this may lead you into work that doesn't look medical at all, but has a hugely positive effect on people's lives. Being wrong in these ways, at least in the conventional sense, may set you on a path to being gloriously right and to making far more of a difference than if you just put up with the quiet life. It infuriates me to be wrong, said the French playwright Molière, when I know I'm right. J'enrage de bon cœur d'avoir tort lorsque j'ai raison. Yet the truth is, we are creatures who by our nature make errors. It is through our errors that we learn, in the same way that children first say mouses and then learn to say mice. We acquire understanding through calibration and then constant recalibration. This recalibration doesn't just apply to what is out there. it also applies to our judgment of ourselves, our reactions, our own thinking, and our personalities. It is needed most of all in our encounters with patients. One of the great medical ethicists, the physician and lawyer J. Katz, once wrote as follows: "Even in their most intimate relationships, human beings remain strangers to one another. One can only understand another to a limited extent. But the problem runs even deeper. One can only understand oneself to a limited extent. Physicians and patients are not exempt from this human tragedy. Its pervasive impact on all human encounters contradicts one of the most basic and revered professional dogmas, that doctors can be totally trusted because they act only in their patient's best interests. This dogma only compounds the tragedy by assuming an identity of interests and brushing aside the need to clarify differences in expectations and objectives through conversation." Unquote. To clarify differences in expectations and objectives through conversations. Observe your wrongness in its many forms, not just from day to day, but from moment to moment. Being wrong and then correcting it is evolution in action, evolution in the moment. Being wrong and then correcting it is something to celebrate as a route to understanding. Laugh at it when you can. Try to forgive yourself when you cannot. Be at all times willing to apologize to colleagues, to trainees when you have them in your own turn, and most of all to patients. Being wrong will never go away. You will be at your most dangerous when you think it has, and at your most creative when you recognize that it hasn't and it won't. Paradoxically, the more you assume you are capable of getting things wrong, the more likely you are to get them right. I wish you all the very best of good fortune in your clinical years and in your lives and work ahead. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Dr. Launer, for those very memorable remarks. Maintenant, je vous présente Mademoiselle Marie-Pierre Bastrache, étudiante de la promotion 2017.
So good morning, everyone. Bon matin. Today, I decided to wear the same white coat, the same shoes, and exactly the same dress that I wore 24 months ago. Only now it has pen stains all over, and I have about 9 different IDs to carry with me. 24 months ago, I didn't quite know the journey that my white coat and I were about to begin. I knew TCP and clerkship were going to be intense learning experiences, where I would finally be part of the medical team on the wards in the hospital for the first times. And first times, there were many. The first time I was asked to suture an teeny-tiny laparoscopy port incision in the OR on day 1 of surgery. The first time I was handed the oh-so-precious pager when residents were gone to afternoon teaching, infant tachycardia. The first time I was finally able to clearly see the tympanic membrane on a squirming 2-year-old. And the first time I was told, Marie-Pierre, scalpel. My white coat was also with me on my more difficult times. The first time I looked into the eyes of a 34-year-old woman with stage 4 cervical cancer who clearly knew she was about to die. The first time I assisted in a criminal autopsy case on a case of conjugal violence. The first time I saw a neonatal intensive care unit staff here today discuss with parents, having to stop all life-sustaining measures on a 24-weeker, 700-gram baby with very severe sepsis. And finally, the first time I delivered a healthy baby on my own, was handed a huge box of Ferrero Rocher and was asked by the family to take a group selfie as a souvenir. So your white coats will be with you on all your first times. And today you receive them. That's a very big deal. I'm extremely honored to be with you today for a maximum of 8 minutes to share with you what I've decided to call my 3 musts. I'm not done medical school myself, but here is the advice that I'd give to my younger self that morning, 24 months ago, when I awkwardly put on my white coat with Dr. Slapkoff's help. Because trust me, you'll all look a little bit awkward doing it, and the step is huge. So here I go with my 3 musts. Must number 1 is be grateful. Be grateful. There are thousands of aspiring students who are denied entrance into Canadian and Quebec medical schools every year. You have the privilege to be on this crazy journey that will lead you to one of the most fulfilling professions you could dream of. When it gets difficult, be grateful that you're there to experience it. When it gets sad, be grateful that you are given the opportunity to share intensely personal and life-altering moments with patients and their families. When it gets happy and joyful, be grateful that these moments remind you that not all disease-related experiences are sad. When you're lonely, be grateful that you have about 185 colleagues who are going through the same grueling experience you are, and reach out for help. When next year there aren't enough student lockers at the Glen for all of you, be grateful that we have state-of-the-art facilities that most faculties would die for. When every day is exhilarating, so exciting that you wake up before your alarm at 4:50 in the morning, be grateful that you've maybe finally found exactly what you want to do when you grow up. So must number 1 is be grateful. Never forget the luck that we all have to be sitting in these seats, and never forget the thousands that will never make it but who would have likely made excellent clinicians too. So on to must number 2, be block A. As I was writing this speech, So as I was writing the speech, I was actually anticipating skeptical faces in the crowd, but I prefer the clapping. So yes, must number 2 is be block A. We are the new curriculum. Let us be the generation of medical trainees and physicians who deeply care about block A and its repercussions on patient care and patient safety. Let us be the members on our team who recognize sexual, racial, and religious discrimination when we see it, who recognize the impact of education and poverty on access to healthcare services, who recognize the subtle signs of patient illiteracy on incomprehension, and who then take the extra time to draw out care plans or medication regimens for patients. Take the example of one of my patients, a 6'10", 300-pound Aboriginal man, hundreds of kilometers from his family, put on dialysis after years of debilitating kidney disease. Recognizing he couldn't read when his nurse handed him the cafeteria menu, I then took 1 minute to kindly read through the options with him and help him decide what he wanted for the next meal. I quickly gave a call to the cafeteria myself in front of him. In that instant, I became his favorite healthcare professional. He'd high-five me in the hallway every time we ran into each other, and he called me the nice doctor for 2 weeks after that 1 minute of caring. So a point that I want to make here, and that I don't think we're told often enough, is that the personality traits and caring attributes that attracted you to medicine are actually exactly what will make you excel in the next phases of your training. We can all acquire the medical knowledge we need to practice. Trust me, you'll all become up-to-date whizzes in no time on the wards. But what will make you special and what will make your patients confide in you rather than any other team member is not your medical knowledge, it's your human knowledge. It's understanding how Block A and physicianship are at the core of every single patient interaction you will have. We all have the power to be the human beings we described in our personal letters when we applied to this program. And that you have within yourself. So be you, be Block A, and be the medical student you'd be if that patient was your grandmother or a longtime family friend, because they all deserve just that. So now on to must number 3, be resilient. Be resilient, easier said than done. My favorite definition of resiliency is the following: an individual's capacity to respond to setbacks in a healthy and adaptive manner and persist in the face of obstacles. Some weeks you'll be exhausted and will just want that rotation to be over. Some weeks you will witness poor doctor-patient interactions, leaving you the impression that the patient just deserved more. In those instances, for me, being resilient meant seeing negative patient encounters as fuel and motivation to aspire to be better and do better, for our patients, for our healthcare system, and also for myself. We're all sacrificing precious personal family time over the next few years of our training and careers. So to make it all worth it, among other things, I think, is the need to feel proud of the work we're accomplishing, day in and day out, and feel satisfied with the way we're treating every single patient. Personally, being resilient also meant getting involved in extracurriculars that allowed me to be me, like playing varsity basketball for McGill and advocating on behalf of medical students within our faculty and beyond with the CFMS, the Canadian Federation of Medical Students. So find those meaningful extracurriculars that will keep you grounded and will help define your medical school experience by out of the classroom and out of the hospital endeavors. They'll enrich your journey through medical school, will make you meet passionate people who care about the same things you do, and importantly, they'll help you stay balanced and well-rounded through the process. Some days, your energy and emotional gas tanks might be low, but you'll have to find it within you to fight. Access MedWell resources. Reach out to your colleagues, to your Osler fellows who are here, or to your Osler co-leaders. We're there for that. Do whatever you have to do to fill in that energy tank so that you're ready to face medical school's next challenge to the best of your abilities. Donc c'est ça, mes chers Med 2, mes 3 musts. Soyez reconnaissants, soyez bloc A et soyez résilients. Be grateful, be block A, and be resilient. I wish you the very best on this special day. Merci beaucoup de votre confiance et de votre attention, puis on se voit à l'hôpital très bientôt.
Thank you, Marie-Pierre, for those words of wisdom. Dr. Gupta, Assistant Dean, Student Affairs, and Dr. Slapkoff, Director of the Physician Apprenticeship Program, will now take their places for the donning of the white coats. Asil Abda. Yakin Abdwala. Mona Aflaki. Usama et Alhaj. Jamal et Ichu. Faris al-Badarin. Matthew Anacleto Dubarno. Corinne Archer-Ulysses. Christine Audi. Alexandre Bélanger. Magnus Bain. Uri Bender. Ève Belzile Dugas. Lara Berliner. Kelly Benisti. Henry Jason Beam. Christina Edda Bianchini. Philippe-Antoine Bilodeau. Cassandra Bouchard. Catherine Boudrias. Soumaya Bouhout. Eugène Bralovski. Asli Bouyoucourt. Natasha Kaminsky. Catherine Caron. Ariel Chakowitz. Eva Chadnova. Alan Chang. Vladimir Cherniak. Audrey-Anne Chevrier. Kevin Chin-Ku Su. Yehuda Shokran. Jean-Michel Coalan. Justin Colavincenzo. Sandrine Couture, Jonah Dabora. Matthew Dankner, Rami Darwich. Deborah Dawson. Laurence Davies. Jade Desilets. Shreya Desmukh. Justin Desroches. My fault. Michael Destunis. Deuxième reprise, Justin Desroches. Vanessa Dilala. Jean-Simon Deveau. Jessica Drury. Alexandre Doucette. Sean Arinza. Alexandre El Halbi. Ruan Gafar. Marie-Rachel Félisère. Vicky Gagnon. Florence Gagné. Ella Gangby. Serge Galland. Lauriane Rita Garabed. Pallavi Ganguly. Heidi Girgis. Sébastien Mihail Georgescu. Julia Greenfield. Delphine Golbert. Julia Greenfield. I did that? Switch orders. Nisha Gupta. Guido Guberman. Jessica Hazan. Haitian Hay. Nina Hébert Murakami. Roy Hilsenrath. Nguyen Antoine Huang. Priscilla Hurst. Elias Horner. Xinyuan Huang. Véronique Huot. Richard Hugh. Sophie Jarzma. Nicholas Wynn. Joseph Y. Kwang Kam. Nicholas Wynn.
Peanut Gallery wants you to wait for the second name before you call it out with the applause.
Tia Karas Rohan. Burnett Johnson. Ehab Kandil. Samantha Kinley. Abdel Hakim Khalaf. Araz Kuyumjan. Matthew Condoff. Noémie Lahey-Cathy. Philippe Kramer. Anne-Sophie Lafrenière. Laura Labonté. Alexandra Laverde-Sade. Zubin Lahijanian. Michelle Lee. Morgane Laverdure. Ariane l'Italien. Rachel Lemoyne. Sin-Nay Liu. Shalon Liu. Elena Yelnas. Yan Jiao Lu. Jessica Lu. Justin Long. Eve Mayotte. Lucie Luot. Judith Martel. Joseph Mancini. Melissa McDonald. Maxime Masson. Luca Melnichuk. Sarah McRae. Sarah Mohand Saeed. Lenjo Menjo. Kayla Morad. Marcus Moore. Anna Murphy Busky. Maria Mustaqim Barrett. Rahul Nanda. Muriel Nader. Anne T. Nguyen. Melody Blessing Ing. Sabrina Nolan. Julian Nguyen. Saravit Pa. Rebecca Oxenhandler. Camille Paradis. Steph A. Pang. Alka Patel. Emily Parkinson. Vincent Peck. Carolyn Pavoni. Pascal Péchard. David Perrier. Kyle Rask. Stefano Policello. Leandra Rabinovich. Mohammad Rabani. Marc-Antoine Ricard. Jana Raffleson. Stéphane Robitaille. Maisha Roberts McDonald. Milos Rowicki. Sarah Rogers. Robert Sandberg. Surya Sacker. Laura Sang. Stephen Sanders. Leslie Scarp. Nicolas Scarborough. Evangeline Seganati. Oliver Schneider. Alexis Semeszczyk. René Séguin. Hao Cheng Shen. Yi Hong Shao. Jennifer Silver. Lucy Teresa Shum. Elena Skothos. Milani Sivapragasam. Alyssa Smith. David Slaweska Eng. Ian Spreadbury. Lisanne Sun Drapeau. Eric Sonke. Fatoumata Silla. Sean Stukmansky. Yi Tong. Zaid Sweden. Brian Tran. Michael Tipshirani. Alexandra Valenkak. Stephanie Totten. Dylan Vatcher. Ashley Tritt. Charles Vincent Rajadurai. Danny Var. Christina Zarong Wang. Nicolas Vandeville. Aislinn Wang. Casey Wang. Pearson Wu. Brianne Wortman. Russell Janowski. Christopher Wong. Zin Kang Yang. Angela Young. Congratulations to the class of 2019. I will now ask Mr. Brian Tran, class president, to address the class and lead the reading of the pledge.
I love you all too. I'm already making good use of the pockets. So I promise to keep this short. You can already start smelling the food. So on behalf of the class of 2019, welcome to the Donning of the Healer's Habits ceremony. Now we wanted to take this opportunity to thank all of those who dedicated their time and effort into making this day possible. Special thanks to Dr. Cummings, to Dean Eidelman, Dr. Gupta, Dr. Slapkoff, Dr. Boudreau, and all other members of the faculty, to Anne Briggs and her wonderful team, and the organizers for orchestrating such a distinguished event. Thank you also to Dr. John Lunner for your inspiring words and reminding us of the intricately humanistic aspect of medicine. Many thanks also to Marie-Pierre for sharing your insightful, witty, hilarious, and eloquent reflections with us. Thank you to our Osler Fellows who are here with us today for their continued mentorship and their guidance. Last, but certainly not least, thank you to all of the friends and family members, both those who are here with us today, as well as those who are no longer with us, for your love, your care, and your dedication. I hope that this day also serves as a reminder of your sacrifices that you have made, be it bearing treacherous waters in hopes of seeking a better life for your children, or being the anchors when we ourselves are faced with high tides. On a more personal note, I feel it appropriate to express my gratitude towards my outstanding colleagues. Seldom are the days that go by without me feeling privileged to be able to learn and grow alongside you all. You continually remind me of the values that led us here today. You stand at the frontier of scientific knowledge and tackle the mysteries that our predecessors have left unsolved. You lend your voice to those who cannot speak. You shed blood and sweat advocating and fighting for what you feel is just, and you challenge the status quo, striving for a better tomorrow. I wake up every day knowing that I will be surrounded by radiant figures of fervor, resilience, passion, and humanity, whose accomplishments are fueled by compassion and limited only by their imaginations and their willpower. So to my classmates, my second family, thank you for being my inspiration and I look forward to the 3 upcoming years together. Aside from being an opportunity to recognize and celebrate those who have been by our side for what is but the beginning of our journey, today is also a day for us to reflect on the privilege that we have been granted in pursuing a field that allows us to have direct impact on people's lives. Now, to recognize our roles and responsibility, I ask you to join me in the reading of our class pledge. So class, if you may stand, we're going to start with the French reading du serment. Everybody ready? This is the cumulating moment right here. Okay. Aujourd'hui, j'endosse tous les devoirs et responsabilités associés à ce sarrau et je m'engage à porter mon sarrau fièrement avec intégrité et humilité, à prendre parti pour l'ouverture d'esprit, l'équité et la dignité des patients, à ne jamais perdre de vue ce qui a éveillé ma passion pour la médecine, à nourrir cette passion tout au long de mes études et ma carrière, à soigner autrui comme j'aimerais qu'on me soigne, à accompagner les patients au cours de leur maladie, à aider les proches des patients à travers leurs épreuves, à faire porte-parole de ceux dont la voix ne sont pas entendues, à bien informer les patients et leurs proches et à collaborer avec eux, à tirer les leçons de l'expérience de mes patients, à fonder mes décisions cliniques sur les meilleures données disponibles, à évaluer les nouvelles recherches et technologies de façon critique, à évoluer pour m'adapter aux besoins changeants de la population, à faire corps d'égal à égal avec les autres membres de l'équipe soignante, à veiller sur ma santé et à promouvoir cette pratique dans la communauté médicale, à prendre soin de mes collègues et à les soutenir pour que nous puissions tous réussir. Now for the English version. On this day, I assume all the duties and responsibilities associated with this white coat, and I pledge to wear my white coat proudly with integrity and humility, to promote open-mindedness, equity, and patient dignity, to never lose sight of the spark that ignited my passion for healing, to nurture that passion throughout medical school and beyond, to uphold the standard of care I would want to receive, to accompany patients through the plight of illness and disease, to support patients' families in coping with hardship, to advocate for those whose voices are not heard, to educate and collaborate with patients and their families, to learn from my patients' experience, to utilize the best available evidence to guide my clinical judgment, to critically assess new research and technology, to evolve and adapt to meet populations' changing needs, to stand together as an equal alongside the other members of the healthcare team, to promote a culture of self-care within the medical community, to care for and support my colleagues so that we can all succeed. Congratulations, class of 2019.
Thank you to the class of 2019, and thank you, Brian. This concludes our formal proceedings. We ask if you are available to please join us for a short reception. Thank you so much for coming.